In this lesson, I will explain how to recognize and perhaps how to form the perfect tense of the Latin verbs. That is the perfect tense of the indicative, active, regular verbs. Here they are. These are the four, or the 4.5, or perhaps the 5 main classes of verbs in Latin, and here are their sample perfects. Here is an example of the perfect tense in Latin: amavistis, you loved or you have loved. You can try to learn this. You can try to learn this particular form, and you can learn all the forms of all the other main sample verbs in Latin. But there is another way of learning these verb forms. Let us break this verb up. Let us break up amavistis. We begin with the perfect stem. And as I say here, the perfect stem is often, not always, by no means always, but the perfect stem is often the sum of the root, the connecting vowel, and the tense marker. Let us see how the perfect stem is formed in the largest group of Latin verbs. Let us go back to amavisti and let us begin with the root, am. There is the root, which never changes, not in this particular class of verbs at any rate. Here is the connecting vowel, and if you have watched the other videos in this course, you will know what this is. Here is the tense marker. Here is the element in the verb amavisti, which tells you very clearly that this is a perfect tense. You put it all together and you have amav. And so you have the perfect stem, which in this class of verbs is the sum of the root, the connecting vowel, and the tense marker. Here is the perfect stem plus the personal ending amav, the perfect stem, istis being the personal ending, amavistis. You may have noticed that these personal endings are different from those of the other tenses we have so far covered. And here are all of the personal endings for the perfect tense. Isti, those are different from the ones that you have so far learned. Imus, istis, erunt, those are not radically different. They're just the usual personal endings with an addition at the front. You must learn these personal endings and you must hold on to them. They are added to all active perfect tenses in Latin, and they will often be your surest guide to recognizing when you encounter a perfect tense. Let us see how the perfect tense is put together in the largest class of Latin verbs. And I go back to amavisti, so let us see how the perfect tense is formed with the verb amo. There is the usual order of persons, and here is the usual order plus the perfect stem, to which we add I, amavi, I loved or I have loved. Amavisti, thou hast loved, or you singular have loved. Amavit, he or she has loved. Amavimus, we have loved. Amavistis, you plural have loved. Amaverunt, they have loved. Let us now see how the other groups of verbs in Latin form their perfect tense. Audiv, formed in exactly the same way as amav, of the root, the connecting vowel, and the tense marker, to which of course the usual personal ending is added. Amavi, amavisti, amavit, amavimus, amavistis, amaverunt. Seems relatively straightforward. Let's continue. Monu, second group or second conjugation verbs. Here the perfect stem is not formed in quite the same way as with ammo and audio. You have the root mon, but you don't have the usual connecting vowel, and you don't have the usual tense marker either. Or perhaps you do, since V and U were the same letter for the Romans. But let's see how it continues. Monui. That's more reassuring. Monuisti, monuit. Monuimus, monuistis, monoerunt. Not too bad, I suppose. The perfect stem is not formed in quite the same way as with ammo and audio, but it's formed in a reasonably similar way, and you have those blue personal endings which are exactly the same, and I will repeat and emphasize these personal endings are attached to all perfect tense verbs in Latin. Let us pass on to rego type verbs. Rex. Remember the root that you'll have seen in the earlier lessons in this course will have been reg. The perfect stem is not made by adding a connecting vowel or a tense marker necessarily. It is made by a direct change to the root of the verb. In this sense, these perfect tenses here are rather similar to the formation of the second aorist tenses in Greek. I will say no more of this for the moment, though I will eventually provide a course on the Greek verbs. But for the moment, let us take a change of reg into rex. To this, we again add the usual personal ending. So rexi, rexisti, rexit, reximus, rexistis, rexerunt. The same personal endings, but be aware that with these particular verbs, the root changes, and that shows you the perfect stem of the verb. Let us turn to the last group of verbs on this table, capio-type verbs. Kep. The verb root that you'll have seen in earlier lessons in this course is cap. And so again, as with rego to rex, cap, the verb root, has changed to kep. There's been a change of vowel and a lengthening of the vowel. But again, to this you add the usual personal endings. Kepi, kepisti, kepit, kepimus, kepistis, keperunt. And so here is how you recognize, and indeed here is how you form, the perfect tense in Latin. Let us now look at some of the non-standard ways in which the perfect tense is formed in Latin. Let us begin by looking at those verbs where there is a change to the verb root to form the perfect stem. Ago, meaning I do. This becomes egi, a change to the verb root. Capio, as you've seen, becomes kepi. Facio becomes feci. Phero, a bring, becomes tuli. If you've done Greek, this is very second aorist. You have a total change of root between the present and the perfect tense. If you have done Greek, don't worry, Latin does not do this on the same scale as in Greek. You need to learn that phero becomes tuli, or if you want to learn the perfect participle as well, it becomes latum. Iachio, that becomes ieki. Lego, legi. Sedio, sedi. Video, vidi. There's nothing particularly difficult about these transformations of root, except of course in the case of phero moving to tuli. It is a matter of learning the perfect tense of the verb, along with learning the verb at the outset. But again, let me assure you that the same perfect personal endings are attached to all of these perfect roots. And so if you have trouble recognizing the root, you will have no trouble recognizing that at least we have here a perfect tense of the verb. Let us move to those perfect tenses where there is a change at the end of the root. C or G plus S becomes X. So conspicio becomes conspexi, I notice or I catch sight of. Duco becomes duxi, to lead. Intellego becomes intellexi. Rego, we've done, becomes rexi. Surgo becomes surrexi. Vivo becomes vixi. Again, not tremendously difficult. It will help if when you first look up the meaning of a verb like conspicio or intellego, you were to learn the perfect tense along with the present tense. But I say again, the changes are mostly not that radical, and you can always recognize a perfect tense by the personal ending. Here are some verbs where S becomes a tense marker. Mito becomes misi. Change of root there as well, a lengthening of the vowel. But the most noticeable change for us, especially in those texts where there are no markings of quantity above vowels, is the addition of an S, the change of T to S. Or ridio becomes risi. Here are some of those verbs where double S becomes the tense marker. Discedo becomes discessi. Jubio becomes jussi. And here are some of those verbs where you have a reduplication of the root. Again, if you've studied Greek, you will know that the perfect tense in Greek is regularly formed by a reduplication of the verb root. This is something, I believe, which is inherited from the Proto-Indo-European language. This is a rarity in Latin, so far as not that many verbs form their perfect in this way. But since those verbs which do form their perfect in this way are very common, it is a feature of the perfect which you will encounter very often. Here is one. Cado, to fall, becomes kekidi. You have a doubling of the root cad and its variation from cado into kekidi. Credo becomes credidi. Curo becomes cucurri. Do becomes dedi. Trado becomes tradidi. One possible help in recognizing these particular kinds of perfect in Latin is to look at the words themselves. The verbs do seem to rhyme internally. And when you see these, you should be able to think, even though I haven't learned the perfect tense of this particular verb, I will do my best to remove the reduplication and make a guess as to what the present tense might be. But, as said, where these verbs are concerned, it is better to learn the perfect along with the present. Here is an attempt to show some of the forms that the perfect tense can take. X or S or U or double S. These can function as tense markers. But when all else fails, here once again are the personal endings of the Latin perfect tense. I'll say for, I think, the third time now, that these are regular across all Latin verbs in the perfect tense. If you learn these, if you learn to look out for them, it is very unlikely that you will go very wrong in your recognition of perfect tenses. When I spoke earlier about amavistis, I said that this is how the perfect tense is formed in the majority of Latin verbs. Here is the evidence for that claim. You'll see here that ammo-type verbs, they make up 48% of verbs in the language. And so at least a very large number of the perfect tenses that you encounter in a Latin text will be of the ammo kind. However, a very large number will also be of the rego or the capio kind, 35%. In earlier lessons in this course, when discussing the other tenses, in particular the present tense, and very much in particular the imperfect tense, which is completely regular, I have been able to draw attention to large-scale regularities in the formation of the various parts of these tenses. Where the perfect tense is concerned, probably the majority of Latin verbs that you encounter will be of the ammo audio kind, but a very large number will be of the rego or the capio kind, where there is no guarantee of regularity. And so in closing this lesson, I will say that there are certain regularities in the formation of the perfect tense in Latin, in particular these personal endings. At the same time, there are many variations. Indeed, there are many irregularities. And so this tense requires a great deal more attention when you learn it than the other tenses do. Perhaps I would even say that the perfect tense is the most variable tense in the language. I suppose it is a shame for you as a learner that it is also one of the most frequently encountered tenses. But I hope that this lesson will have cleared away some of the difficulties you may find when you encounter perfect verbs in Latin. Thank you for watching.